we have people do all kinds of crazy things to get customers taken care of. And I know a lady was in the checkout line at Walmart and her debit card wouldn't work one day. And a lady that runs our debit card department got the cash out of her account for her with the customer's permission, of course, and drove that to Walmart and delivered it to the customer. I mean, we just do whatever it takes to get the customer taken care of. And I think that's unique in today's banking environment.
We must sure at this point. Thank you, Commissioner. That's very kind of you. I can tell you spared no expense.
No,
It's a good day.
great thought into it.
What else did you do on your vacation? Okay. Mr. City Manager, if you want to go through the agenda.
Yes, sir, I'll attempt to do that.
Okay. No notes from you.
I'm going to leave that in its wrapping until after the elected officials have left. Item number 1, minutes. Approval of the minutes held last week. I don't believe that we caught any corrections that needed to be made, and I think that we have 2012 properly in the right spot. But any comments, questions, corrections needed from the Commission? Okay. Let's move to item number 2, ordinance 7309, commonly called an omnibus ordinance. We have 3 items that have been identified over the course actually of the last couple of years that require some minor correction or an adjustment to match kind of what the current practices are with maybe what rules and so forth were written quite some time ago. At the end of the day, these are administrative, and these are just things that ensure we're keeping the business done and done in the proper manner. 3 main items. One, and I think certainly Commissioner Sims, Commissioner Eads will probably recall back last spring a year ago, we really ran into some questions of how to most properly count and clarify the supermajority forms that are required in certain zoning cases. With that case, Mr. Norris has made it plain. He'll turn to the backup tab for item number 2. It's just 2 words. Favorable vote of 3/4 of the members of the City Commission present and voting. That's the practice, that's reality. Now we have the code amended to say so.
Clarification there, Counselor. When you say present and voting, let's say that there's 5 here and 1 abstains. That means then 3 out of the remaining 4 must approve whatever it is. 2 is a no vote.
That's correct. It fails to pass. It's a tie vote.
Fails to pass, right? Okay.
And that conforms to our charter, or doesn't displace it.
Yes, correct. Good question there.
Good.
No more doubt.
If it happens to be 3,
Then it's 3.
it has to take all 3 because there is no 3/4
You got to
of
be
3.
first to take the quorum.
That's a good point. You can.
That's a good point, Jim.
Well, and exactly the case that we found ourselves in last spring, where we had 3 present and voting, and the only way in for the item to pass was actually unanimous. All 3 had to. A 2-to-1 affirmative vote would not have passed it.
Gotcha.
So we're just, that has to ever be considered again. The instructions are right there.
Very plain.
The next one would be dealing with the appointment of the deputy city attorney and so forth. This is clarifying, number 1, such authority, but number 2, aligning it really, truly more closely back to the charter and to what we actually do for that. Our budget, our positions are authorized in the budget. That's how that works. Bringing that forth.
Well, help me a little here too. We don't appoint the city attorney. This is the job of the city manager, or we do?
It's a little blend. I am hired by the city manager with the consent of the city commission.
I see.
So he picks and then presents his list to go.
I wasn't aware of that. I knew we did municipal judges.
You do it directly.
Yeah.
They are your employees.
Yeah.
And then we okay that the attorney through
I guess because you came on before. I'll be glad.
Yes, sir. I'll get you a memo around that.
You're not
And the final set of changes, moving right along.
Moving right along.
The final set of changes dealing with hauling trash and so forth across the street. And I think you can see in there that what we're doing is just trying to clarify that, trying to make that enforceable, deal with the inevitable issue, and it just comes up usually in the spring and the fall when people are hauling things and blowing out the back of their vehicles up and down the street and the highway and etc. That's what that is. All three are presented here for your consideration and hopefully approval. Any questions?
So really, all we'll have to do is make the motion and refer to the attached document, and people will ask and ask. We don't have to micromanage the reading.
And that's exactly why we do all these minor housekeeping things about once a year, sometimes every other year. Just a single ordinance instead of having 4 different ordinances on your agenda.
Item number 3, resolution public hearing. We will conduct a hearing upon and order the removal of substandard structures and solid waste in the city. You have 2 such addresses. 1300 North Spring is a home. That home has a long history. We began this process quite some time back, and it was embroiled in a tax suit. In fact, when we get out there and go into the details, you'll notice that the 2009 taxes are delinquent, 2011 taxes are delinquent, but they paid 2010 taxes, which is what kind of took it out of the suit and put us behind the ball trying to catch back up with it. It was presented to you 2 weeks ago during the initial hearing that set this date. Some residents of that neighborhood talked about this home actually was where a murder victim was found, and that is true as well. Actually in the garage of the home, but certainly on that property. So we've got that before you and ready to go through it. Does have back taxes, does owe money to the city, and is in very bad shape. We'll have both of those.
Was the victim an owner of the house? Was the victim the owner of the house?
No. The house was empty, and I think it probably been empty for some time when that happened or was discovered.
You have pictures of the house.
We do.
Condition.
We do. The second property, 1701 South Nelson. This is the southeast corner of the I-40 and Nelson intersection. It is an old convenience store.
Shell station.
It's been closed for some time now. Got some structural issues, has some major pieces of it that are coming off of it. We have that. That property is for sale, has been for sale for a while. So there may be somebody here to speak to that one. It does owe money to the city. It does not have delinquent taxes at this point. All of our attempts to contact the owners of this property have gone unanswered. And I don't believe we've yet heard from the owner. We've heard from the realtors.
Yeah, he's heard from the realtor.
Yeah, in the last 2 days, a couple of conversations, and the owner of the property claims that they may have someone that wishes to purchase. The realtor was not going to represent, as of the day before yesterday. As of yesterday, they said that they're going to be here today to represent the owner. That they may have someone that wishes to purchase it in the next couple of weeks.
There's actually a question about the tanks and the gas station right across the street. I frequently had, and he said that there was somebody from the water board in there questioning them because they said it fell off their radar and there's a problem with the tanks, they think. And there wasn't removal of the tanks, and might have to be filled with sand, and they have to be tested to see if there's any leakage downstream. So it's an environmental nightmare too.
Potentially, if they've had some leakage.
Yeah.
And the city assesses the cost.
We will assess the cost of the demolition. Our demolition will not include the removal of those tanks. That's regulated directly by the states. And certainly subject to y'all's consideration based upon what you hear today and what you think the best outcome to that property is. If we stop the condemnation, we'll have to begin it anew. So at some point in the future.
So myself and the other new
If at all.
understand, so we condemn it, we tear down the building, it doesn't, we still don't own it unless it's a tax sale. We just get rid of the bad structure.
Correct.
So before we would, then it would go to tax sale, but they would have to deal with that environmental problem underneath it as part of that sale, or
The new buyer.
The new buyer is going to purchase the property either
a
with
potential
tanks.
problem.
Yeah, they call it a death certificate. If the tanks have been tested, remediated, and given the final okay by the state, then you get a quote, a death certificate on your tanks, meaning they're not an issue.
Yeah.
So at what phase they are in that or not, we could not speak to that.
Is the new buyer, would a new buyer be responsible for the assessment of the destruction?
There would be
If attached
you
to the property,
bill the
so
owner of the property
Uh-huh.
and ask for payment. At the point that they do not pay, it attaches to the property as a lien. So generally, to transfer property, you have to satisfy those liens.
say like on what mow weeds, and they won't pay us.
But that thing's been in disrepair for 10 years. And it's struck by some semi-trucks. I think the top rancher around the gas station has been knocked down and hanging. Now they've removed that. It's
It's an eyesore.
So when you have a lien that's worth more, that's more than the value of the property, how ultimately are you able to rehab the property? Or
Negotiations.
Well, if it's a private sale and you negotiate on it, if it's a sheriff's sale for taxes, it cuts our lien off unless they get enough what they call excess proceeds that covers the taxes. If there's anything left, it goes towards the liens like ours. Otherwise, it's cut off.
the prior owner still has to deal with the EPA.
The EPA will go after anyone and everyone who's ever been insurance from the date of estimated date of pollution
We're
forward.
going to go back to that flood.
Well, this property does not have delinquent taxes. It has current taxes owed. But the property already has a little over $1,600 assessed against it by the city, where we've had to go out and either mow it or mow and clean it up. You can pick up the trash and take it off of there.
Well, we'll see what happens from there, because it just needs to go. I mean, you know,
They're going to talk about
why hadn't they talked to us before? They would show us, you know, so it's
And this is a long process
Very long
to
process.
get it to here.
Yeah, just some other comments, and we'll go through all this in detail. The copper has been stripped out of it. It still has old food products in it from the last time that it was, was in business. You can see clearly from the outside some of the damage and deterioration in the actual structures.
Okay, next.
Next, this is the second and final reading of the ordinance we presented last week, clarifying the position of the current city's insurance and risk management program as it might relate to any other purchased or third-party insurance policies that could apply to a particular claim. Appointments, boards, and commissions. We have one on here today. This is the Potter Randall County Emergency Communication District Board of Managers over on 8th Street. The City of Amarillo has 2 appointees to that board. Chief Steve Ross was one of those appointees. That spot is open, and we need to fill it. The second spot is Colonel Terry Gilmore, who is eligible and willing for reappointment. We would respectfully suggest Ms. Judith Wyszynski-Price, the manager of your Emergency Communications Center, as a nominee in place of Chief Ross, and then reappointment again for Colonel Gilmore.
Can I just say Judith Price?
Hey, Washington.
Say it.
You can do it. Say it fast.
No.
We're talking.
Judy Price.
The old Washington.
Never try somebody with 3 names, Jim.
Learned that the hard way.
People have 3 names for a reason.
What are they covering up?
So they're proud of it.
Somebody's gonna get a memo.
Right, there's a memo coming.
Somebody's gonna get this. Here.
Borrow your.
Get this one.
Yeah, get it on this one.
It's one of the youngest packets this way.
Okay.
If I find out where he made that stamp, I may as well.
Yeah.
You said of what? Emergency services?
The Amarillo Emergency Communications Center.
South Lady. Yes, she is.
Okay, we're ready for the consent agenda. Consent agenda item A, police personal protective equipment. These are lightweight bomb suits. Some of you may recall this time last year we purchased 4 of these to replace some of the larger, heavier suits that were expiring. This completes that replacement. Proud to say that is from seized funds. That's not coming out of your general fund budget. These suits allow those technicians to also use hazmat gear, hazardous material gear, and to more freely and realistically operate than what they can. They still have a couple of the big, large, heavy suits, but these are much more usable and preferred. They are a proprietary purchase, but that's again to match the ones that we already have.
So how many do we have total now?
7.
It'll be 7 after this.
4. Okay.
But you've got to retire some of those.
They become dead.
They have an expiration date.
Yeah.
But literally, these are expiring this year. The ones that we're replacing are expiring this year, so here's the 3 new ones for that, and you get, again, 4 of them.
And the one that the mayor put on, that was a bomb. That wasn't a hazmat.
No, that was the big suit.
Yeah.
And we did photographs of that if anybody needs to go.
For Halloween next year.
Will they disappear like the movie that shows him
No, we still
volunteering
have
to be
the-
tased?
We have the evidence of being tased, but we don't have where you volunteered to be.
No, because it's not out there.
It's there. It's there. I've witnessed it.
It's a carnival-like atmosphere.
It
It's
is
not
always
always like
It is
this
the
here.
start of the year. We're going to go down.
It's
We're
always
going to go down. Who says?
Mayor item B, purchase of electronic ticket riders. Again, a proprietary purchase, but that is to match the ones that we already have in place. This is 34 units. The actual electronic unit is made by Motorola. The proprietary part of it is the part that Brazos Technology does, and they're the ones that do the software that drives it. And more importantly, they do the interface that ties this back to your Intergraph system and gets all of that in there. These units,
What system? Intergraph?
Intergraph, the big in-car computer that's run out of the communications center. This all ties back together and then goes off into both the police records and the court records. And just makes its way through. These will be to equip some of the current officers that don't have them, certainly to equip the new officers as they come on the street. And we just put that first batch last month out through their field training program, so they're coming. And then some replacements. Unfortunately, they occasionally have a rough life and might end up broken. 40% of the cost of these is from one of our grants. It's called the JAG grant, Justice Assistance Grant. The remainder is from your current police department operating budget, where we budgeted for equipment for the new officers.
The difference is
Federal. Yeah. It's correctly, that's the Burney one, isn't it? It's correctly the Edward something Burney, Edward J. Burney Justice Assistant. I don't know who he is, but his grant program's been around a long time. It's a good program.
State or federal?
Federal. Next item, gate valves and tapping valves used throughout the year by various city departments. Primarily, of course, that is the water department, but also used quite a bit by the parks department. Low bidder on that one, put them in the warehouse and issue them as needed. Not as fun as lawsuits. Real mundane.
Yeah.
Item D, acceptance of a Veterans Affairs Supported Housing Program grant from Housing and Urban Development, or from HUD. This is a new program for us, and this allows us to assist up to 25 homeless veterans with rent assistance in partnership with the VA.
Now, would some of those trickle through things like Another Chance, or is that if they're referred back to Another Chance House?
Well, this is standalone housing where it could be Another Chance House because they have some small rental units. But the congregate housing, like a shelter, it wouldn't apply to that. This is for them to live in a house or apartment.
So it's in addition to what they were doing. That's
Yes.
right.
Item E, the annual acceptance of the HIV prevention grant. This is 2012-2013 contract. The funding has gone up slightly, and I believe the increase in funding was to cover one increased training opportunity that they had to travel to. Any questions? Well, Mayor, that finishes the open agenda for today. We do have two major topics that we'd like to cover with you in closed session if we have some time. Start on that. Yeah, go ahead and read that. I think we'll get to it.
Mayor and Commissioner, now call a closed session